for most Democrats.
What do you think what's the primary factor? Like what caused identity politics to reach this boiling point that it's at right now?
Well, it is, I think, in large measure what the internet is doing to us. It's not that identity politics hasn't been a feature of politics forever, but there's this siloing effect. There's the effect that groups become more radicalized as groups because the most extreme voices tend to pipe up more, and everyone who's silent. I mean, there's kind of a diffusion of responsibility around countering these extreme voices. Like it only takes a small percentage of extreme voices to cow the rest of a group and make the group seem like the extreme voices are speaking for the group.
Right.
So I think what we have in both the left and the right, we have a small percentage. I mean, the last poll I saw that tried to get at this question was something like 6 or 8% on the tails that are making it seem like these are. And I think it's more of a problem on the left than on the right, because I mean the extreme right is fringe and looks fringe, right? Like the guys in Charlottesville with their tiki torches, they don't look like they represent the Republican Party or the conservatives in any general sense. They're a symptom of some problem, but it's a smaller problem. It's a minority problem. Whereas on the left, the extreme voices have massive sway in major companies, in tech companies, in journalism, in academia. Like the silencing effect and the reputational cost that's being paid by even very powerful people in all these mainstream forums on the left is just that's not mirrored on the right, and it's. I mean, so I don't know if I told you this. Certainly didn't say it on a previous podcast with you, but so I was at dinner with a bunch of Silicon Valley people, and we were talking about. It was at the moment when that Netflix story happened, where where Jonathan Friedland got fired over using the N-word in a closed-door meeting, and it was a
using the N-word in response to my friend Tom Segura, who you
exactly.
met earlier.
Oh yeah, right, exactly. Okay,
special, yeah, where he said you can't say retarded anymore, yeah, and then explained like that there's words you can't use anymore, and right, wasn't using it in a joke like calling someone retarded or saying something's retarded, but he was saying that that's like using the N-word around black people.
Yeah, but he used the N-word in this meeting, right?
Yes.
And he says like using the N-word, and the mere intonation of those syllables,
yes,
was so shocking, right, that he wound up getting fired. Right, and again, he was using it in the context of expressing just how careful Netflix has to be about speech. I mean, he was going social justice warrior on himself among social justice warriors, and he said, "This is how worried we have to be." And then he gave the magic incantation.
But you can still say retarded, which is amazing, exactly, because it's
right.
I mean, in his defense, you kind of have to say both words. You're not saying the R word.
Right.
Like using the R word is like using the N word around black people. I mean, we're getting to some weird fucking weird place with this.
Actually, no, now I realize why I'm confused about why I think I've talked about this, because I did a podcast with Chelsea Handler, which hasn't aired. I mean, I did it months ago. Because she was doing a documentary on white privilege, I think, and I think I'm actually cast as the guy with white privilege in this documentary.
Oh boy,
yeah, that's going to be fun.
You have white privilege?
Yeah,
nice.
So, but I recorded a podcast with her. So anyway, so we hit this point because this had just come out then, and I think her documentary is probably for Netflix. So,
what was her take on it?
Well, she was basically, I mean, she was playing the other side of the net for this, and not. I mean, we'll have to see. I mean, I think at least in my own mind, I certainly made sense there, and she didn't have a lot of response to what I was saying, but I haven't heard the audio or seen the video. So anyway, I was at a dinner with a bunch of tech CEOs talking about this problem, and one guy who I won't name, who runs a big company which I won't name, said, "Listen, you have no idea how deep this goes. Like I have an HR complaint where there's a guy who identifies as a furry, right? He thinks he's a cat, and because we don't provide litter boxes in the bathroom, right? He's launched an HR complaint, right?
This is real?
This was told as a real story as a counterpoint or in amplification of the story we were talking about at Netflix, right? So it's like this is. And yet this is happening, like people are having to navigate, CEOs of multi-billion-dollar companies are having to navigate around this stuff in-house, right? And I mean, the Google thing over James Damore, right? I mean, that was an enormous problem for Google, right? Like the wheels were coming off, as far as I can tell, from what I've heard.
And how so?
Just that, like, there was going to be a Google mutiny over James Damore if he had to be fired. Yeah. This was a big deal at Google.
That's so insane.
And what he wrote was essentially like a B+ term paper in human biology, right? I mean, it was like you can
with
push
references.
Back, you can push back on some of the science, but like this was not a malicious distortion of the state of the science, right? And this was not calling for discrimination against women. This was just saying, listen, men and women are different, and they've got different interests, right? And this could account for why there's an unequal representation at the level of software development. And so, we're on the left, we're finding it very difficult to even talk about differences between men and women, right? That there's start with a uterus and then count from there, right? That is already a taboo conversation to have, and as we said at the beginning. In talking about Twitter, that one writer, again, I think her name is Megan Murphy, she got booted for saying men are not women.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, that's so again, so politically, I'm very worried that unless we resolve that or just cut through it, we don't stand a chance against Trump in 2020.